What's up, guys? Camp Flippership here. Just another video today where I'm kind of talking about, things that just interest me. And today's video wanted to talk about the certain kinds of people, certain kind of job. I guess you could call them professionals if you felt so inclined. That basically the kind of people that work in sales. It's the worst kind of job, or the kind of professionals, because they really can have some of the worst people. Now, my mom works in sales, actually, so I don't want to be too overly critical, but generally speaking, people that work in sales tend to be like super weird and hard to interact with, like in everyday life. Like, you just don't understand their morals. Not in the sense that like it would be hard to interact with them like in a social setting, because as the job implies, they are very social people. They're very good at talking and gabbing about random stuff. But when it comes down to understanding their perspective and how they rationalize their work, a great example is I worked in sales for quite a while, before I had my job now. And I've worked at several different car dealerships selling cars, and I've sold internet, and I've worked within a marketing and sales department for a company that did distribution. And I'll tell you right now, sales is a lot of conversational skill. It has more to do with your ability to talk to people than it does your ability to advertise a product, because a lot of the times people are not necessarily buying the product, they're buying you, per se. And I know that's a little bit goofy to say, but it is one of the things that salespeople kind of harp on and say, this is definitely true. And it does have truth to it, because if you go to any sales environment and work in it long enough, you'll just come to realize that that's just generally the truth. So with that being said, and I apologize if the wind is a little bit overbearing. It's kind of hard to find a time to record when there's no wind, because it's just like it's always going. But anyways, that is one central theme, is that those individuals who are best at having conversations about things, just general things, are going to be a lot better at sales than those who just know the product well. So a lot of it comes down to your general product knowledge, but more of it comes down to your general ability to have conversations and relate to people, because people want to buy from people who can get across to them, and nobody's going to get across to people if they have their shields up. So you got to bring people down off of their critical sense, and you have to bring them back to reality and humanize yourself, because people don't look at salespeople like human beings. They look at them like what they are, which is trying to get something from you. So you have to turn a hostile interaction into an interaction that feels like a personable reaction, because you're less likely to get scammed by somebody who, or at least mentally you feel like you're less likely to get scammed by somebody who versus a stranger who the only interaction you have with them is that they're trying to sell you something. So psychologically you can see how it makes sense. But all that being said, in the industry, I've had a lot of qualms with people who were sort of very fake, and their number one priority was always selling. And I think that's part of the culture, is that these people have this idea that the most important thing to them is selling. I had people who told me, I don't care if this is a single mother who can't afford a payment. I need you to try your best to sell her whatever bullshit that we're pushing, because it's important to meet our sales goals more than it's important to us about what happens to her after this payment. I've had a instance where I sold internet when I worked in internet sales as well. I hadn't mentioned that. Maybe I have. I worked in internet sales, and I sold internet to a lady who was a little bit older, and a little bit, she had a little bit more trouble trying to figure out her internet situation. So I told her, well, since you bought this internet from me, I will make it a little bit easier, and I will have a conversation with you on how to set up your internet, and we'll chit chat and talk about that stuff. And so we set up a meeting to where I could talk to her, and she needed a little bit more help than I had anticipated. And I remember trying to talk her through how to set up her bill and how to set up her stuff that she had paid for, which was significantly more expensive than her previous internet. And my manager was like, dude, get the hell out of there. I don't want you going back to that house. You're wasting time. You could be selling. Not only that, but in the industry, a lot of people are very highly under the influence of drugs. You know, I used to do drugs and drink on the job. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this with my digital footprint, but there you go. Anything for you guys. But yeah, so, and everyone else I knew did. And my manager one time caught me, and he basically told me, hey, you know, Jesus, this wind is fucking horrible. And he basically told me, he said, hey, look, I don't care what you do. If it makes you better at selling, then that's all that matters. If I can't smell it or see it or tell, then it's none of my concern. And I always tell my salesmen that if something makes you better, then do it. So that was kind of like the general principle, the general idea in that environment. So yeah, that gives you sort of an idea of the kind of people that they try to promote there. It was rife with people who would rationalize and sort of use like cognitive dissonance to make themselves think that what they're doing was good. You know, we would scam people all the time and get people out of their money and say like, well, we're making their lives better and we're giving them access to things that that they might not have had access to before. And so there would be times when we'd be selling things that were just, literally just not beneficial to anyone, and avoiding telling them the truth about some of these things, and you know, omissionary lies, saying, hey, you know, I'm not going to mention this thing even though it is a major component, so I technically never lied to you. But the truth is that you did lie, because you told them something that you withheld something that you knew was going to be a major thing in their decision-making process, which makes you disingenuous in nature, right? So, but anyways, all that aside, you know, we would do that to people and basically, you know, completely mislead them. And people that did that would say like, well, you know, it's not necessarily our responsibility. It's not necessarily the biggest deal, because at the end of the day, we're helping them. And so these guys have a complex, like as if they're helping people, all the while they're really hurting people. And the funny thing too is that all these guys actually fool themselves into believing it. And so you actually have to be a little bit of a fool to be a salesman, because you have to be able to fool yourself and you have to be able to fool others. Now there are people who do sales that are genuinely, you know, trying to do something positive. It's not very common, but there definitely are people that do it. For those people, I tip my hat to you, because that is something that the world needs more of, but they're pretty rare. And so, you know, whatever negative things you've heard about sales in the past, those things are all true. And when you encounter somebody who is like a high-level salesman, chances are that person has like some sort of sociopathic tendencies or disorders or things like that. And I know I don't want to be like armchair psychiatrist here, but it just feels that way when you talk to them. You can tell that interactions to them are mainly just you know, they're transactional, right? And they tend to have like a fake idea in their head about who they are, what they support, and they'll change their ideals around people. So I'm very weary when I'm around people that work in sales, whether it be real estate, whether it be car sales, because those people are a little bit differently wired. And I think they can kind of fool themselves into things that are dangerous to believe. I know this has been like a go hard against salespeople video, and I don't want you guys to think that if you work in sales that I hate you or that, you know, you're a bad person necessarily, but you do work in a field that is rife with corruption. So it is just one of those things, like, I feel like I have to tell people about, because in all my time doing it, I'll tell you that there's been no industry, excuse me, there's been no industry that I've ever worked in that has had quite the level of corruption and the level of cognitive dissonance as sales has. And the people that I know from working in that industry are some of, if not the most corrupt and bad and terrible people that I know. they are fully fooling themselves into believing things, and they are willing, they do not consider other human beings and their experiences. They almost only really consider things through the frame of how it affects them, which is an extremely dangerous kind of person, especially in the modern day that we have now, with so much controversy and things along that line going on that require people to have empathy. But my phone is getting really fucking hot because I live in Texas and it's like 100 degrees and shit, and I can't record for too long of a video because it'll just fucking like completely crash out, and because it's so hot outside. But I will say, guys, it's been fun ranting. Let me know any questions you have about sales in the comments. If you don't have anything else for me, well, it's not like you could tell me if you did. Rock on.